about to present the 2024 budget. It's a very crucial one that also is under an IMF program. What are your expectations?
We know what the IMF document is, fiscal consolidation, trying to narrow the gap between revenue and expenditure. So the budget cannot be far from that. Um, in this time, it's not a time to advise the government to reduce taxes. However, there are some taxes that I would call for its removal, like the sanitary tax, and then find a way to substitute it in an area that is growing well. So you reduce the taxes from the areas of the sector that are struggling, and then you go and tax more in the areas that are doing well, like the extractive sector, like the telcos. I would have mentioned the bankings, but they have suffered a lot from the DDEP, and the other sectors that are also doing well. So try and do some reshuffling of taxes, remove from the areas that are struggling, and go impose it in the areas that are doing well. We also expect some policy reforms. The government has just 1 year to finish their term. They've promised a number of things to Kenyans. They have their flagship program. They would want to complete all the flagship programs, and I'm not sure they'll complete all. So they should privatize. And number one on their list should be the agri sector. They have Planting for Food and Jobs as their flagship program. They should invest heavily in the agri sector. Why do I say so? If you invest in agri sector, you are creating jobs because it has a high employment generating potential. You are also taming food inflation because that is the area the food inflation is higher than the national average. So you want to push in the farmers with lower credit. The exchange rate is stabilized, but you can give farm inputs, fertilizers, pesticides to farmers at a lower cost, and therefore they can also produce. When they finish production, store the food and then release them during the lean season. Make sure that the transportation from the farm gate to the market is also comfortable because there's a big gap between the farm gate price and then the market price. There's a huge gap which must be closed. For talking about agri, there's too much profiteering in the market. People are taking advantage of the seemingly dire economic situation, and they are just profiteering. So I want government to introduce weighing of food items on a scale. It is done in some countries. So if I want to buy yam, there should be a scale. Put the tuber of yam on the scale. The weight of it will determine the price. In this case, at least we can control the profiteering. Another aspect that the government should prioritize is the manufacturing. We have always been preaching local manufacturing. So the pharmaceutical is there. You can mention clothing, you can mention textiles, you can mention any other local production that we need. Let's incentivize them. Let's make sure that they can produce at a lower cost to create more jobs, and then we can all have a relief. If 2024 was not an election year, this budget would have been very tight because of the IMF program. But you know what the IMF have done? They have pushed almost 80% of their fiscal consolidation to 2023. The narrowing of the gap, you were supposed to bring the budget deficit down by 5.1 percentage points. And out of the 5.1 percentage points, government was supposed to achieve 3.8 percentage points in only 2023, which they have outperformed. The other one, I'll commend the government, they have performed creditably well, and we have achieved that. So because they know that the government will expand its expenditure in 2024, which is understandable. So the budget is going to wear two caps: the cap of tightening fiscal monetary policy and the cap of expansionary, so that you can finish the projects, you can create jobs. It's an election year, you don't want to tighten things too much to overburden Kenya. So the budget is going to wear two caps: tightening and also expansion at the same time. That is why I said that look at the areas that are struggling, relieve them of tax burden, and then look at the areas that are doing well, like the extractive sector and the telcos, and then push some taxes there. And in all, we should find we can increase the royalties. Royalties is around 5%, and it is fetching government around 4 billion cedis. If you double it to 10%, it will not be out of place. You can double the royalties from 5 to 10%, and then you can rake in averagely 8 billion cedis. I have made a proposal, and I think many economists agree with me, that within the next short possible time, government can raise 50 billion cedis, extra money. Well, where are the sources? Number one on the list is tax exemptions. We have given away too many tax exemptions. The cost of tax exemptions is about 1.5% of GDP. This amounting to about 13 billion. The government can raise some money from there. The tax of the incomes of the informal sector is around 1% of GDP. That's about 8 billion cedis. We can get some money from there. Property tax is about 2% of GDP. That's giving us 18 billion. You put all these together, you're talking about close to 50 billion cedis that can be realized in the medium term, in the short to medium term. So all doors have closed. We cannot go to borrow externally. If you want to borrow domestically, it will be at a higher cost. So we are just left with just one option. That option is to get our revenue domestically. I am not a subscriber of just always trying to raise revenue through taxes.